People say folders are obsolete. You can just search for the files when you need them. But if you work with photos and videos, this kind of falls apart because you're not going to be able to use a Finder search or a Spotlight search to find that 3-year-old photo of your dear Aunt Margie. So folder structure is helpful, but too much folder structure can actually create friction. So it's not so much about folder versus search. It's finding the least stressful way to find the file later. You know that moment when you know the file exists somewhere, but you're clicking through 6 or 7 layers of folders trying to remember what you were thinking when you saved that file 3 years ago. The frustration is a symptom. It's not actually the problem. Let's look at the roots of the issue. Let's talk about a couple of the real problems. The first one is file dumping. You know your downloads folder is bloated. It's got like 738 files, and the ones that are any older than like 2 weeks are a deep, dark mystery to you. And if you're always saving to your desktop, it's convenient, but it makes a mess. And these two things really hinder you from developing an intentional file retrieval system. And the other problem is extreme folder organization. You've created deep nesting. You find yourself endlessly clicking around in what ends up being futility. You've developed duplicate files here and there over time. One day you think one way when you're saving a file, and another day you think another way. And an extreme folder structure system creates a lot of visual clutter. And saving files perfectly creates a lot of decision fatigue over time. I mean, seriously, some people spend more time organizing their system than benefiting from it. The problem usually isn't storage, it's retrieval. But here is where folder structure still matters. Folders work best for file collections. You're likely to browse instead of search. So these would be things like your active projects, or if you have archived work from months or years before. You've created a digital assets collection. Think like document templates that you've created, stock images you've collected over time, or reusable graphics resources that you use frequently. Long-term reference materials like owner's manuals or for your For Dummies books. Now, while I may not remember exact file names, I can generally remember the project time frame, roughly where I stored it, and this is where folder structures become helpful. Hey, real quick, if you're finding this video helpful, then go ahead and click the like button. And if you like videos like this one, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Now here is where Finder Search and Spotlight shine. Pun intended. Search does not replace folder structures, but it can reduce navigation friction. Now we all know that Spotlight can launch apps and calculate conversions, among other things, but it can find folders and files too. For example, let's pop into Spotlight, and what I'm going to do is search for files related to a recent video I created about wallpapers. So I'll type in wallpaper, and I scroll down the list, and before too long I see the folder where I collected that, and if I double click, there's my folder, and I can get to work. Now Finder also offers search, but what it does by default is it will search your entire Mac every time you search over here in the upper right corner. So let's get that focused, because a lot of times if you're in a folder, you want to search from that folder and beneath it. So let's go ahead and get that set up. Under Finder, go to Settings, then jump to the Advanced tab, and you'll see right down here, when performing a search, it says search this Mac. Let's focus it a little bit better and say search the current folder. And like I said, now Finder will search from the folder location at which you are currently located and the folders and files underneath that. So now let's give search a try. Now I know in my creative folder, I created a tribute to Boss's Day, and I remember that I named it Boss. So if I search for Boss, there it is. All right. I can see what I exported here was celebrating Boss's Day like a boss. Get it? Cute. It's funny. It worked well for that day. Okay, but let's say I've got a photography book that I know, and I'm pretty sure that it was a For Dummies book. Now, let me see if I can get that. For Dummies, and nothing shows up. Let's see that if I saved it somewhere else on my Mac. So if I tap this Mac, there it is. And what I can do is right click and show in the enclosing folder, and there's my file. Now search has its limitations, of course. It's not really going to work too well for content like within an image. So if you had like envelopes in an image and you don't have envelopes as your file name, maybe you had named a desktop with a messy desktop. So you're not going to find that image with that search criteria. Also keep in mind that operating systems aren't perfect. Sometimes they're going to index the content of your folders and files better than another time. It doesn't happen often, but it is a reality we live with. Also, if you've created a set of files with vague file names, like for instance, I don't know, blue background step2.png, I'm going to forget that in 3 minutes, much less 3 years from now. And here's a quick guide to some common sense scenarios with their best retrieval methods. And there is a free, no hassle link to this table in the description. Now, my philosophy about folder versus search is I take a hybrid approach. I use the folder structure and I limit the number of subfolders I create within it. I name any of my files for a specific idea. And if appropriate, I'll go ahead and add keywords to the comments field. Here's how you do that. Say I've got an export here and it's titled Independence Day. It also talks about 4th of July, which is what we nicknamed Independence Day here in the United States, but it's also a firework. So let's go ahead, let's right click the file, let's tap Get Info, bring that over here, and in the comments field I can actually type in fireworks and 4th of July. Now these terms will be indexed with this file and I can find it in search like via Spotlight or in Finder, and I can find it that much faster. But be intentional when you do this, because you know you. Anticipate how you're going to think next year or the next 3 years when you want to find this file again. A good file system should survive your future self. Okay, when it comes to living with my philosophy and my hybrid approach, for long-term storage, I think folder navigation first. When I search, I mostly start in Finder search first, and I don't permanently store temporary files. If I export an image from a graphics application for a client, I send it off to the client and then I delete it. I can export it again if I ever need to. Now we've talked about folder structures, but what does an efficient folder structure look like? Think of 5 or 6 broad top-level categories. Then use subfolders within each of those to further categorize your files. But at that level, if you create more than, say, 10 folders, challenge yourself to make your categories a little broader. And really, really challenge yourself for every additional layer of folders you create. And I know a lot of people want to see examples of a folder structure, but I've looked into many and realized that there is no one-size-fits-all structure. You're unique. What works for someone else will only partially work for you. Let others inspire you, but create a structure that works for you. And in case mine inspires you, here it is. For me, the books and creative folders are top level only because I access them frequently. The other folders are broad topics with a limited number of subfolders within each. And here's a couple of quick tips. Don't create a folder structure based on dates. Files have timestamps in their metadata. Use that to sort them. Don't torture yourself. And those downloaded files in your downloads folder, the ones that are over 2 weeks old, probably just delete them. Okay, so let's quickly wrap up. Folder storage is helpful. It's not obsolete. Search is quick, but it doesn't solve everything. And people create stress by letting files pile up or by overthinking their folder structure. So find your hybrid balance. Your goal isn't perfection. It's reducing friction when you're looking for a file. So until next time, have fun, stay safe, and keep learning.